Why had I been accused, and of what exactly? They even dared to beat me up as soon as they finished accusing me. Everyone seemed very clear at that meeting that I was the culprit, that somehow I had sneaked into the house to attack my cousin. But that wasn't true. The only time I separated from the group was for 10 minutes to go to the bathroom and back. I never met my cousin alone, and even if I had, I would never have laid a hand on her. My rebelliousness was still evident in my behavior. Yes, but I wasn't a violent person. Family or not, I would never force anyone in the way I was accused. I never considered myself a bad person under any circumstances. However, I'm the first to admit that, since my teenage years, I've always been considered a bit of the black sheep of the family, and rightfully so, as I was the kind of kid that the rebellious stage hit hard. I barely studied, not being interested in the subjects taught at my school, nor having an academic future in mind. I hung out with the neighborhood troublemakers, and it was with them that I smoked secretly during recess, went to paint graffiti on facades, or got lost in endless parties from which I didn't return home until well into the early hours of the morning. I was a rebellious and capricious child since, besides being an only child, my family was quite wealthy. My parents ran a multinational manufacturing company, and therefore our heritage was extensive. Enough so that, rather than lacking, we always had more than enough of everything. And perhaps it was that assured comfort that made me take such a careless attitude towards studies and what society expected of me, since I was clear that once I was an adult, regardless of whether I went to university or not, I would already have a secure position in the company, since I was the only child.
Listen to me for a moment. You can't go on like this, or you'll end up very badly. Someday you'll become the CEO of the company, but for that, you're going to have to make an effort, or you won't last even a whole day in the position.
Come on, don't be dramatic. Grandpa ran the company in his time, and he didn't even finish high school. I'll be fine.
Those were different times. Nowadays, additional knowledge is necessary that you don't learn on the street, going to nightclubs, and basically doing anything other than having your head stuck in books.
Well, if you really think I'm not capable, you can find someone else to be your CEO. It's not like I'm interested in being in a boring company like this anyway. That annoyed my mother, although the idea that they should give up on me was nothing new. I saw the idea of running the company in the future as an obligation just the same, or even worse, than attending school every week. Sometimes I didn't mind so much thinking that someday I could be my own boss, but that joy lasted little when I remembered all the path and effort I would have to make to get there. No, studying wasn't for me. And, as good intentions as my parents had, I knew very well that they wouldn't put me in an executive position as soon as I accepted the job in the company. Years passed, and I continued with the same attitude of the young guy who didn't care about anything because he had everything. My family, excluding my parents, who also worked in branches of the same company, considered me ungrateful. And although they didn't say it directly to my face, I had caught them looking at me badly or avoiding me on more than one occasion. They still invited me to family gatherings, but I was clear that they only did it for my parents. And in fact, it was at one of those gatherings where my ordeal began. I had just turned 21 at that time, and having refused to start university, I spent my days as a warehouse boy at the main headquarters of the family company. I was at the bottom of the chain, not only at work, but also in the family.
Ha! Here you are. You thought you could escape after what you've done, huh?
And what am I supposed to have done this time? Adulterate the wine? I'm sorry to say it, Uncle, but the drinks you brought today were not good at all. I think you've been ripped off at the winery.
Don't pretend ignorance. We just found your cousin Sarah lying on the floor, bleeding, and having a significant anxiety attack, saying that you attacked her.
What? I haven't even approached her all night. Is she okay? What happened to her?
You know well what you've done, but don't worry. Soon the authorities will know too. The police are on their way.
He attacked me and touched my butt. Please call the cops.
My confusion only increased with each passing minute. Why had I been accused, and of what exactly? They even dared to beat me up as soon as they finished accusing me. Everyone seemed very clear at that meeting that I was the culprit, that somehow I had sneaked into the house to attack my cousin. But that wasn't true. The only time I separated from the group was for 10 minutes to go to the bathroom and back. I never met my cousin alone, and even if I had, I would never have laid a hand on her. My rebelliousness was still evident in my behavior. Yes, but I wasn't a violent person. Family or not, I would never force anyone in the way I was accused. However, all my relatives seemed very sure that I was guilty, including my cousin, as they made up a whole story to the police about my delinquent habits, claiming that it wasn't the first time I looked at Sarah with such intentions in mind, and alleging that today I took advantage of a moment when the rest of the people were distracted to attack. It was ridiculous. My parents didn't believe it at first, but as the testimonies of the other 15 or 20 people at the gathering coincided in blaming me, they inevitably began to doubt my version.
You were right, Bryce. It seems that in the end, you won't have to worry about inheriting the CEO position. No one is interested in having an abuser in charge of such a well-known company.
But I haven't done anything.
If you haven't done anything, the police will find out. But you'll understand that for now, we can't risk our clients believing that we're defending a son who dared to commit such a barbarity.
Believe me, we like this less than you do. We'll have to disinherit you, I'm afraid.
And that's exactly what they did, removing me from their will as if I had never had any right to their bank accounts and properties. According to the new will, another one of my cousins would inherit the company, curiously the same one who was Sarah's brother and the uncles who had accused me most vehemently. That's when I started to suspect, what if all this wasn't a mistake by my cousin, but a scheme created by my uncles to take away my future position as CEO? If I were convicted of sexual assault, my career would have ended before it even began. I couldn't allow that, not like this. My parents disinherited me, but at least they had the consideration to pay for good lawyers to try to mitigate the damage that all that affair would have caused to my reputation. I ended up in jail, yes, but all wasn't lost yet, because the trial hadn't come. After a few weeks in jail, my lawyer came to visit.
I don't think we'll ever go to trial.
Is that good or bad? I've already told the police everything I know.
It's all good news the police had gone to check the camera footage of the house and could figure out you are innocent. The investigation is over, and the police have concluded that there has been no sexual assault, neither from you nor from anyone else. It seems that it was all a farce to incriminate you.
It can't be. But then what happened to Sarah was an invention.
In these weeks you've been in jail, things have changed in the family business. Your uncles have taken on more responsibilities, perhaps preparing to take on the CEO position someday. But you don't have to worry. If all goes well, you'll be free in a few days.
My lawyers were right, and in a couple of days, I was acquitted of all charges. So it turned out the plan was for my uncle and his family to send me to jail and take over my position. I was angry about what had happened to me, and besides the emotional wounds, I still hadn't healed from the physical ones. My uncles, before the police came to arrest me, had played the role of their lifetime, pretending to be the family members hurt by the offense I supposedly did to their daughter. And before someone managed to pull them away from me, they had repeatedly hit me until I was on the ground. I planned to exact my revenge now, even knowing that the police would do their part by going to the door of all those who had given false testimony against me.
We're really sorry for the misunderstanding. You should know that, if you still want to, we have no problem in putting you back in charge of the company when the time comes.
We'll talk to the press to clear your name too. That will help you regain your good reputation among employees and neighbors.
You're aware that I don't plan to withdraw my complaint against my uncles, right?
We don't expect you to. What they did was truly horrible.
My uncle and cousin were later arrested for false accusations and beatings. With my uncle in jail and having been ordered to pay me compensation for the harm done, my mindset changed overnight, making me more skeptical and less carefree than I used to be. I realized that what I had was really valuable, and that's precisely why my own family hadn't hesitated to take it away from me. Then, although I couldn't change being the black sheep of the family, I could change my attitude and become someone who did care about the work that was rightfully mine. I started studying and put effort into my position, excelling in it. Before long, my parents had no choice but to admit that I was being of good use in the company, and therefore deserved a promotion. My uncle and cousin were the only ones who were sentenced to prison. As for the rest of my family, or to be more specific, those who participated in the hoax, were dismissed from each of their positions, or relegated to places where they had to work many more hours for less pay. Perhaps this would have made me somewhat sorry if they genuinely mistook me for Sarah's assailant, but they didn't. They always knew I hadn't done anything wrong. They were always waiting for me to fail because they knew my parents valued me enough not to give up my share of the company unless I disappointed them in a serious way. Over the years, I rose to the position of CEO, making the company more successful than ever. As for my uncles and cousin, after spending a long time in jail, they were eventually released. However, they were unable to find good jobs in the state because everyone had heard about what they did. In the end, my uncles ended up taking care of mentally unstable people, and from what I hear, sometimes they are attacked by their patients. Meanwhile, my cousin Sarah works as a cleaner at an orphanage since my uncle was unable to send her back to school. Thanks for watching.